Welcome to Pagan Crafting. I'm your host, Kara, and today we're going to make a talking stick and go over talking stick medicine and etiquette. We're going to use the 4 sacred directions on the medicine wheel, and we're going to go over the meanings, the color, the correspondences, why I've chosen the things I did for this medicine stick, and I hope it inspires you to make your own. Join me today as we present a new way to hold space. So for my talking stick, which is also known as a medicine stick, I'm going to focus on 4 colors. I'm going to be using the 4 colors of the medicine wheel. I'm using the Cree, Alberta medicine wheel. I'm using the white, yellow, red, and black. I'm going to go through what the different meanings for those mean as well too. I have some jingle jangles, I have some copper wire. We're going to use crystals, hide, natural wood, feathers, copper, and beads today. So starting off with some natural, I guess you can call this string, some natural hide. I'm going to bind and round the first part of my talking stick. I'm going to wrap it 7 times for the 7 generations. And now, as I'm doing that, I'm going to tell you some really cool stuff about a talking stick. Now, a talking stick is used in a sharing circle. In a sharing circle, you should stand or you can sit, but only beside someone, never in front or behind, so each person can be seen and each person can be heard. Now, a talking stick will help give you the courage to speak your truth and have the ability to share. Now, you can listen in 4 different ways. One is with your eyes, by looking at the speaker who is holding the stick, giving your full attention, respect. By 2, you can listen with your mouth, by keeping your lips closed and not interrupting by talking. A third one is by listening with your mind. You can focus on the speaker and don't think about your responses, what you're going to say next, what you have to do that day, what needs to be discussed. Just focus on what they are saying. And the 4th way you can listen is with your heart, showing that you care about what the person is sharing about and listening with your heart. A sharing circle, a sharing stick can be used in many ways. It can be used in a large group and it can be used in a small family. It can be used in a meeting at work. It can be used in a ritual. It can be used in a coven or with friends. A talking stick is a really great way to have a safe space and a place to share your truth. So now that I've wrapped all the leather pieces here, I'm going to start with my beading. I'm going to use a little bit of Gorilla Glue here. That's been working quite well. And that way it doesn't have a glob. So you have to watch with some of the hot glue when it comes to leather. It wants to seep out the sides and it doesn't look very nice, which I discovered. And when I did the base of this, I had to rewrap. Oh, not a good time. Now these beads, I didn't show the process of beading these. This took me a few hours to do. So I think putting that on hyper speed is really just not worth it. It's beading. What I did is I took 10 colors of, I have a solid color bead with a glass see-through bead, and I took 10 of each, and I just did progression of those colors from the white to the yellow to the red to the black and so on. So you could see here where I was just repeating it by 10. So when I go do the wrap, it'll do a really cool little spiral zigzag around. Now I'm gonna wrap these ones 13 times. I wrapped the leather 7 times for the 7 generations, but I'm going to wrap this one 13 times for the 13 moons. And you want to keep the beads nice and tight, so careful as you go. You don't want any spaces in, because once the glue is cooled down, that is it. They are not moving anywhere, and then it just is not going to look that good. Just doing a super fine, very, very, very thin bead of the hot glue as I go around. I'm not doing too much at once, so it doesn't, as you can see, the beads have a little bit of space for me to work with. And now you can see the pattern as it's starting to take shape. Very happy with that. Just recounting, make sure I have 13 moon wraps. Now that is completed, you can see that I taped off my string from the beginning. We're going to tie those two together. Even though it's glued, I still want to anchor those down. Now this is an expensive nylon coated thread that I found at the beading store with these beads. So this is what was suggested to work with the beading. So it's a little bit more sturdier, a little more solid to work with, and it was a little bit thicker line too, which was cool. And going back to 7 and being very careful not to use too much hot glue when it comes to leather. Oi, oi, oi. I made that mistake, and it was a costly mistake. I had to, on the bottom, as I was saying, I did that on the bottom, and I wound up having to rewrap it. It just looked nasty. So that was disappointing. And if you cut this on an angle, you'll be able to flip that up quite nicely, and it'll be just a little tighter fit. Little cleaner line. Yeah, that looks so cool. Now we got to do the bottom here. So I have this just leftover piece of leather from another project. It's very, very thin. I think, so I just cut out a little piece here. I don't have a tool. I can't find my saw to be able to clean this up the bottom here. You can see it's got a line here. I want to hide that, to be all honest. And I don't feel like sanding. Yep. So we're going to hide this and make it look cool like it was meant to be. Lay down some hot glue first, and then really apply a lot of pressure to it to squeeze it out, because I don't want any of those hot glue bumpies. Give it a good pressure here, and then a thorough squeeze down. And then I'm going to start the leather wrapping with this one here too, and that'll hide all the little wrinkles. Oh, nice glob of glue. Yeah, I think this is a one that I want up redoing. I'm not sure. I was a little overzealous with the glue. And then it really squished out and it didn't look cool. So I think I might have redone this end. We'll see. We'll see how it looks. We'll see how it looks. But I would suggest using the Gorilla Glue for those parts. Now we're going to take our little Jingle Jangle copper dudes and we're going to open up, so you can see the opening here. We're going to open up so we can slide it down over top of a few layers of some feathers. Now I wound up having bags full of feathers, but they were all fluffy feathers, and I was going to use the corresponding colors to the medicine wheel as well. But sadly, it just looked tacky. It just didn't look as cool. So I think with this turkey feather and the black turkey feather and the white goose feather, I think it looks super cool. It's clean, it looks sharp. We'll throw on some copper, the little jangle dudes, and mix her up a little bit. Now I'm going to tell you something else that's kind of cool. I'm going to tell you about different parts of the medicine wheel, why I've chosen this. Now the yellow represents children, the red represents youth, the black represents parents, and of course the white would represent the elder. Now the yellow represents the eagle, tobacco, spring, and fire. The red represents the wolf, sweetgrass, summer, and earth. The black represents buffalo, sage, fall, and water. And the white represents the bear, cedar, winter, and the wind. So I thought, rocking all this in for a friend of mine, I was asked to make a talking stick for Elder Claudette Shorney, who we did the smudging video 101. I'll throw this up on the right hand side. You guys can check out that video there. Smudging 101 was an incredible interview, and I got to ask lots of questions, and she taught us a lot of etiquette even as well. So when she asked me to make a talking stick for her, I was thrilled. So because we did some of the medicine wheel teachings on my channel with her, I thought I'd bring that medicine into the talking stick. So hence why I chose the 4 sacred colors for the 4 sacred directions of the medicine wheel. Doesn't that look sharp? Now these are they're little jingle bells, but I think it looks really beautiful on the feathers. So because I attached them all first and I didn't loop them on, I have to figure out a way to kind of glue this together now. So this is not like the way to do it. This is just the way you do it when you get ahead of yourself and you make a mistake. So instead of being able to like loop it over, I'm having to just kind of glue the ends a little bit together because I couldn't get the loops through the feathers because the feathers are so big. I didn't think about that before I glued it all together, but that's okay. This worked out really pretty as well, so it looks like it meant to be, and it turned out pretty nice. All right, super glue is my friend. That was awesome and quick. Now I have some more that I've attached here. Now these little wooden beads at each of the ends that I have here, they're not going to be a part of this. They're just a way I'm going to anchor in the little jingle jangles onto the piece. Now I'm hoping that this really thick nylon infused thread is going to hold on. And I think I pulled it too tight here. And I snapped it. Yeah, very good. So that was awesome. So that made me a little nervous. So I re-threaded this. I use these little wooden beads again as my anchor. And I really hope This is not going to be mishandled. If not, I'm going to have to rethread these with some other type of nylon thread. I'm not sure, to find something else. So fingers crossed. I know it will be handled with absolute respect. I don't think any little kids will get a hold of this. And I think that fits it. There we go. That's what was supposed to happen. It's sliding along there. There we go. And I'm just going to hot glue that in there and anchor that down. That worked out great. It was just easier to throw the hot glue inside, really, than having to do what you just saw me just did. Okay, so I'm gonna tie this on to my front part of my talking stick, and then I'm gonna wrap it with some leather, and we'll hide that thread later. Now, mind you, this thread is quite thick, so again, fingers crossed, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. I got glue blobbies on there. Alrighty, so our next one here, I have the longest one up front, about a medium one second, and then I made two shorter ones for the back. So when making your talking stick, I'd like you to think about the medicine of color. What does it mean to you? What kind of colors or feathers or beads, crystals can you use on this to represent what you would like in your sharing circle? My next talking stick I'm going to be using is, I'm going to be making one for myself. And I'm going to be using all the chakras. I have chakra stones picked out. I have a beautiful piece of branch that I've already cleaned and sanded and prepped, and it's ready. And now I need to Dremel it out and rock it out. What kind of crystals would you choose for your talking stick? Now, there's different colors of hide that you could use. Faux suede you could use. Now you'd like to use beads, hides, crystals, and feathers in this. I'm adding an extra bead here that was from a necklace from a long time ago, because there's a lot of love when it comes to Elder Claudette Shorney. There's a lot of love in her property and her land when I go to visit, and what she creates and how she motivates and empowers the people around her. I really wanted to have the love and the heart on this piece for her. Now, another thing you could do that I was going to do, but I wound up wrapping this with copper later, so I didn't. But you could also paint symbols, paint carvings, runes, words, glyphs, different things to represent your craft, your culture, what you want to invoke. You could also use a wood burning tool, or you could paint it on. Either way would be absolutely gorgeous. Now, I was going to put a number of crystals hanging off, but I found this fat crystal and I had to use it. It's happening. So excuse the hot glue, crystal. Sorry about that. Don't judge. I've had this crystal for a while now, and it's been waiting for a beautiful home. I have used it in my magical workings, my practices. I've used it in my crystal grids. Now it's gonna live on this talking stick, so that's really cool. I'm excited. It's going to a wonderful home. Now I'm going to wrap this with some copper wire. Copper is not only beautiful, it's a great conductor of energy, but it's also a favorite of the indigenous culture. So one of the requests, we thought we'd put a copper on this as well. Now before I wrap, I'm going to create a little bit of a loop to help anchor, because there's nothing that I was hoping I could tuck it in back into the leather. As you see, I was trying there, but it didn't want to work. So I'll create a little loop, tighten her up the opposite way, and that'll work out fantastic now for wrapping. I'm going to crisscross my wrap, so I'm going to work my way down in a nice spiral pattern, keeping everything as tight as I possibly can. Now, keeping as much tension as you possibly can on this, but we're also going to make a little pattern with the wire that's wrapped around the crystal, and we're going to help tighten that up a little bit more, make that a little extra snug. And then I grab some pliers and just did a little half twist with my wrist, a little, and just enough to tighten up that on the crystal. And check out those wraps, very simple, very clean, very fun and easy. Besides the beadwork, this overall maybe took about an hour. But the beadwork, I just sat down and I talked to my buddy Joy, and we were on the phone together, and I just beaded for a couple hours. That took a little while, but it was worth it. Let me know down in the comments below if you use a walking stick or you'd like to, either in your family or your vibe tribe, your coven, your workplace with friends and family. Let me know down in the comments below. And I would like to wish you all an absolutely magical day, and thanks for hanging out with me.